Welcome back to the channel. My name's Tom, and today I'm taking a look at a mall that's been requested for a very long time. This is Rockaway Townsquare in Rockaway, New Jersey. Now come along with me and let's see how it's doing. This mall opened, or at least partially opened, in August of 1977. It was developed by Copaken, White & Blitt and was built on the site of the former Dover Town landfill, which also happened to be a wetland. But at the time, there were little to no regulations regarding building on a wetland, unlike today. The mall is currently owned by Simon Property Group. When the mall first opened in 1977, it was actually still under construction, and not all of the stores had opened yet. In fact, on opening day, only one of the anchors, Bamberger's, was open for business. The next anchor to open was this JCPenney, which opened in November of 1977. And as is common in this area, this JCPenney is the only remaining original anchor store. The next anchor to open was Sears, which opened in 1978, and then the final anchor store, Hanes, opened in 1979. And don't forget, if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, leave a comment, and hit that notification bell. I've got a lot more mall videos coming up, as well as store walkthroughs, flea markets, and who knows what else. And if you really want to help support the channel, please check out my Patreon, which is also called Flea Bitten Adventures. Thanks. From what I've read, this mall has been generally successful from the start. A lot of this has to do with its location near I-80, which makes the mall easily accessible for people from nearby New York and Pennsylvania. And it also happens to be located in a fairly well-off area. Like with most malls, there has been a decrease in customers due to the growing popularity of online shopping since the early 2000s, and especially during the pandemic in 2020, which of course was a terrible year for the mall as it lost two of its four anchor stores, Sears and Lord & Taylor, and also had to close down for a few months. Today, however, as far as I can tell, the mall has been able to bounce back and seems to be doing fairly well today. I know some of you will say that the mall looks empty, but I think that's because this was filmed early in the afternoon on a Monday. I would imagine business picks up a bit later in the afternoon and on weekends, but if you're familiar with this mall, let me know in the comments. One thing this mall definitely has going for it is that it's owned by Simon Property Group. While I'm not always the biggest fan of Simon's design aesthetic, which tends to be rather bland and uses mostly different shades of white as the color scheme, they do take care of their malls, and they do seem to want them to succeed, which is clearly not the case with some other mall owners out there. Now, as far as the mall's appearance goes, in my opinion, it's nice. I like the ceilings especially, but it doesn't blow me away. There's really nothing at this mall that makes me stop and say, wow. Unlike the shops at Riverside, for example, which strangely is also owned by Simon, or King of Prussia Mall. However, it's my understanding that was not the case when the mall first opened. I wasn't able to find many photos of the mall from the 70s or 80s, but upon opening, the mall had what was considered at the time to be a very modern appearance. One of these modern design features was the inclusion of 5 large steel sculptures by artist Rita Blitt. You can see one of these sculptures called Stablet 55 in this still from the 1984 movie Firstborn, starring Sarah Jessica Parker. It's the yellow thing in the background. You can also see the globe light posts and the trees that used to line the hallways, as well as what I would assume is the original flooring. Today, of course, the mall doesn't look anything like that, and all of those sculptures are gone, except for Stablet 55, which is out in the parking lot for some reason. It's way out there. I actually didn't know about it when I came to see the mall, but I learned about it later. I'm assuming Stablet 55 is still here because it became the original logo for the mall. I really have no idea, though, what happened to the rest of the sculptures. I would assume they saved them. I would hope they saved them. But I wasn't able to find anything on them or actually any pictures of the other sculptures. So if anybody knows what happened to the other sculptures by Rita Blitt, please let me know. Now, I would make a comment on some of these dresses, but I did that in one of my last videos, and somebody told me in the comment section that I shouldn't be doing that. So no comments on the dresses this time. But I'm sure if my mom were with me at the mall, she'd be making some comments. And straight ahead, this is where the very first anchor store was located, Bamberger's. It was Bamberger's until 1986 when it got converted to a Macy's. And I think most of the Bamberger's, if not all of them, got converted to Macy's in 1986. Clearly, the mall today looks very different than it did back in the 70s and 80s. I would assume that it's been renovated at least a few times over the last 47 odd years, but I wasn't able to find much information on these renovations. The only renovation I'm sure of was the one that was done between 2017 and 2019. During that renovation, they changed most of the mall signage to the standard Simon design. They refurbished the food court, and they also added the Cheesecake Factory. I'm assuming that there were other changes made to the mall during this renovation, but I wasn't able to find any details on the other changes. I would have stopped to get some candy out of the candy machines, but the last time I was in this area, which was about a year and a half ago, I got candy from pretty much all the vending machines at all the different malls. And 2 days after I got back from my trip, I got horribly ill, and I was ill for like 3 weeks. So I kind of thought back, how did I get sick? And one of the possibilities that came to mind was the candy machines. I don't know if that's the case or not, but ever since then I've kind of been a little bit shy of getting anything out of the candy machines because getting sick for 3 weeks just isn't really worth it, I don't think. And I really don't need that much sugar either, so. Another thing I was not able to find really any information on about this mall was whether it ever had a water fountain or water fountains. Like I mentioned, I wasn't really able to find many photos of the mall from before like the 2010s or so, except for those stills from that movie. And there's just no evidence out there, at least nothing on the internet that I can find, that indicates this mall ever had a fountain. I'm assuming it must have. So again, anybody out there that's familiar with this mall, especially from back in the 70s, 80s, 90s, let me know. Did the mall ever have a fountain? What did it look like, and where was it located? Now, while you're typing your comments about that, let's take a ride in the elevator. And back up we go. Coming up ahead, this is where the original anchor store Haynes was located from 1979 until I believe it closed in 1988 or 89. I know it did become Lord & Taylor in 1989. The Lord & Taylor then closed in 2020 due to the pandemic. And while the signs are taken down inside the mall, the Lord & Taylor signs are still up on the outside of the mall, 5 years after they closed. And once again, I asked the question, why does Lord & Taylor not take their signs down? I mean, I can understand it if it's been a year or two, but 5 years? I don't know, it seems very strange to me. I did actually film this mall back in February of 2024, but I never posted it on my YouTube channel. I did post it on my Patreon, so if you want to check that out, feel free to subscribe to my Patreon. But when I was here back in 24, that train was not there. And we'll take a closer look at that when we get down there, but it's very odd, I thought. Alright, so coming up is the dining pavilion, or the food court. And like I said, this was renovated between 2017 and 2019. And once again, I wasn't able to find any photos to compare what it looked like before 2017 to what it looked like after. So I'm really not sure what they did. I know they might have changed some of the restaurants possibly, and I'm assuming they changed the seating, but I really don't know for sure. Overall, the food court seems to be doing fairly well. There are a couple vacancies, but really not that many. I mean, most of the restaurants here are open. And for about 1:20, 1:30 in the afternoon, this was a decent number of people to be in the food court, I think. I'm assuming there probably would have been more, between like 11:30 and 12:30. And I like the selection of restaurants here. A lot of these I don't see too often. So this is where the Sears was located from 1978 until it closed in 2020. Part of the Sears building became Raymore and Flanagan Furniture in 2016, but I think the rest of the building has been completely vacant since 2020. This place is called Extreme Energy, which is obviously like a kiddie playland type thing. And apparently it's closed on Mondays, which is why it was closed when I was at the mall. But I'm wondering, what is the deal with all the caution tape? That's a bit unusual. And also, am I the only one that always thinks of the back rooms when they see playlands like that? And yes, they do have a pet store. I know a lot of people don't like pet stores for obvious reasons, but I don't know, I always like looking at them, but then I always kind of feel bad for the little puppies in the cages. So I decided not to go in. So this is very strange. If you look straight ahead, you can see they've got an escalator in this Extreme Energy, and it's a pretty big one. So I'm wondering what used to be in there that needed an escalator. I'm thinking like an H&M, Forever 21, like one of those semi-big junior anchor type stores. And then they've got a Books A Million. We do not have Books A Million in Connecticut where I'm from, so I've never been in one. It kind of reminds me of a Walden Books, which is what we used to have in Connecticut. Nowadays, I think it's just Barnes & Noble's the only major bookstore I'm aware of in my area. They've got what looks like a really nice classic arcade here called Marcade. I didn't go in though because it's one of those where I think you have to pay to get in. So I did skip that, but it looked good from the outside. They've also got what looks to be a pretty nice independent record store, or the CD store as it's called, but it was closed too. So I don't know if they're closed on Mondays or what. This store straight ahead was vacant the last time I was here too, so I'm not sure what used to be in there. So I thought this was kind of interesting. This is Rockaway Riders. It's, as you can tell, a train or a railroad, whatever you want to call it. Looks like it's $8 a ride, and they were clearly not open. It almost looks like they took the animals from an old rainforest cafe, which they probably didn't, but that's the feeling I get from it. And this is, of course, the lower level of the old Lord and Taylor. I could be wrong, but I think this is the first flower vending machine I've ever seen. I wonder how many people would come to a mall to buy flowers out of a vending machine. I can't imagine that many, but who knows, maybe I'm completely wrong. And here's a pretty cool looking store, all around retro. It kind of reminds me of a State Line video games, which we have up here in Connecticut and Massachusetts. place kind of reminds me of a mini Party City. I wonder if they saw an uptick in business when Party City went out of business. I'll bet you they did. And this place is called Luxury, which appears to be like a tabletop gaming place, I guess. Here's the Cheesecake Factory, which was added in 2017. And I know the Cheesecake Factory is kind of expensive, but I have to admit, I really like their food. And they've got an Apple store. I believe this P.F. Chang's opened in 2022. I've never been to a P.F. Chang's. Remember, I did try to go to one once, like a year ago, and we ended up sitting like out front waiting to be seated for way too long and just walked out. But I am willing to give them another try. This is another kiddie play area that kind of reminds me of the back rooms, especially if this place were completely empty right now. It would definitely remind me of that. I really like the mirrored background for that JCPenney sign. It's pretty nice. I wonder if that's original to the mall. Alright, so now let's head on out, but don't go anywhere yet. Of course, next we're going to do a drive around the mall and we can see what it looks like from the outside. first up we've got the JCPenney, which might have original lampposts out front. Those look very much like something you'd see in 1977. And I also kind of doubt they've done much renovation on the exterior of that JCPenney over the years. This is where I entered the mall. And in this picture here, you can see what this entrance looked like before the 2017 to 2019 renovation. And I have to say, I much prefer the old sign, mainly because it was so colorful. Today, as you can see, we've got these Simon signs, which all look pretty much the same in every Simon mall you go to, and they're just so boring. You know, you got the black or the dark blue background and then the white lettering. I don't know. I miss the old days when, you know, everything was neon or pastel colors, and it was just so much more vibrant back then. And then this is where Bamberger's was, the original anchor store. And like I mentioned, it became Macy's in 1986. So according to Google Maps, this extreme energy was not here as recently as July of 2023. So that must have been built very recently. And then this is where Sears used to be. If you look really closely in that blue area, you can still kind of see where it says Sears. And then this Raymore and Flanagan was built in 2016 in a part of the Sears. And then up here, they still have the Sears signs up. So I'm not sure why they took the signs down on the lower level, but left them up here. And then this here, this covered area, this is where Sears had their merchandise pickup area. And I know that because it still says merchandise pickup on that sign. And then we've got the old Lord & Taylor building. And like I mentioned, the signs are still up, you know, 5 years after closing. Same with the Sears, but it's weird how the Lord & Taylor seems to be the one store where they almost never take down their signs, at least not until the building is sold and something else goes in there. And this is also where the original anchor store Hanes was located. Here's the Cheesecake Factory, which was added in 2017. And here's what it looked like before it was the Cheesecake Factory. Looked very different. And then the PF Chang's, which went in 2022. And there you have it. That was Rockaway Townsquare in Rockaway, New Jersey. I hope you liked the video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, leave a comment, and hit that notification bell. I've got a lot more mall videos coming up, as well as store walkthroughs, flea markets, and who knows what else. And again, if you really want to help support the channel, please check out my Patreon, where for a monthly fee you do get access to exclusive videos, usually about one new one a month, give or take. But even if you don't check out my Patreon, I do thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you next time.